I'm your host, Rosangel Pérez. In just a moment, I'll introduce you to my co-host, Mark for NY. Cozy is not with us today, and we have an exciting guest this evening, Elijah Diaz, who is a candidate running for city council in Brooklyn that we are super excited about. So listen, while we are warming up the algorithm for those who are tuning in, who are about to tune in, take a moment and share this live. So, okay, vamos a ver las caritas. Introducing to you Mark for NY, my co-host. Hello, Mark. Welcome to the show, and also welcome Elijah. And we're gonna be talking to you in just a moment.
Hello, fellow freedom loving Americans. Great to be back. Another episode on video of the second one. Last time I was in the truck, so I apologize for the sound issues, but we are rocking and rolling right now. We are every Monday at 8 p.m. We discuss New York politics as well as global politics. But right now, we are in crunch time for the New York City election. We've had Athena Clark a couple of weeks ago on our last episode of X Spaces, and we got another city councilman here. Early voting starts, I believe, October 25th. It is crunch time. Get out there, do what you can. We need to. This is the last stand for New York City, and I'm not exaggerating. If we get a communist mayor in Mamdani, we're in trouble. So the mayor race is important, but so is the city council races. And one of those people joining the fight, Elijah Diaz, who is running in the 45th district. Thank you for joining us. Right off the bat, just tell people a little bit about yourself, your background, and why you decided to hop in this fight.
Yeah, well, thank you for that introduction, guys. My name is Elijah Diaz, running for City Council, District 45, the Republican conservative nominee in this district. First time ever that's happened, so it's a special feat to me. Uh, I'm just like any other normal person. I love New York. I'm born and raised, born and bred New Yorker from Flatbush, and I'm looking to serve the district that I grew up in. And I'm tired of seeing the way the city is going. I'm tired of seeing this radical progressive movement that is ultimately hurting normal New Yorkers like us. We have a lot of people coming into this city uh, who basically only care about money, but the people who have been here forever and have just been stuck in survival mode and really have no other way out. We're stuck here and we're seeing the consequences of a long history of, I would say, democratic oppression, in the way that the Democratic Party has continuously gotten worse and worse, and people just have a knack for it. People just kind of seem to like this, but we're at the exodus. We're at the turning point, so to speak, of this city, and I'm a part of that history. I'm very humble and grateful to be a part of that history.
Definitely, I tell people, they voted for De Blasio 12 years ago. He started to destroy the city. They still reelected him 8 years ago. I mean, the polls show that everybody, Republicans and Democrats, hated De Blasio. Then they vote for Eric Adams, who destroys the city, continues down the path of this democratic destruction, and people hate Eric Adams, but now they think that a new Democrat is the answer. It's not. It's just continuing the same definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And putting someone else in there with further left policies, whether it's on the local level with city council or continuing in the mayor level, it's only going to continue to make things worse. And at some point, the liberals have to realize that, you know, to stop the bleeding and stop being stubborn and start fixing New York like Giuliani did decades ago. It's time for Curtis Lewa to do that as the mayor. It's time for city council members like yourself that have common sense ideas to help fix the crime problem, help fix the education problem, and basically just, save New York City while we still can. If the communist wins, he's going to implement laws that are going to be harder for New Yorkers as a Republican to win, harder than it already is. Now, Elijah, one of the things that bothers me the most when it comes to local elections is the Democrats never want to debate. The reason why they don't want to debate, they don't have a reason to. They know they don't have common sense or logic on their side. They have an entire brainwashed voter base that's going to vote Democrat down the line. So there's no reason for them to do it. I mean, what's your take on that? Have you publicly challenged your opponent on numerous occasions, and is there any possibility of kind of going to an event where he or she might be and just you know trying to get a impromptu debate or something of that nature?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm a direct victim of that same exact thing. I've challenged my opponent on multiple occasions, publicly, privately, trying to reach mutual people, trying to facilitate that. And it's pretty much the same thing. She kind of feels like she owns that seat, that she owns everybody in this district's vote. And that's pretty much the way that it's going to go all the way through November. I don't see my opponent or my opponents, because I have an independent opponent as well. I don't see them, being able to get up on that stage and debate me in a real democratic way, in a fair in a fair discussion. It seems to me that because Flatbush is so heavily Democratic and it benefits them regardless, we're never going to see a debate. Whether it's at the city council level, the assembly level, or even the mayoral level. It's just they don't want to see these things. They don't want to see, the brainwash be exposed. And they tried to sue me off the ballot 3 times, and it's for that exact reason. They didn't want to be accountable. They don't accept accountability at a community board level. They don't accept accountability at a city hall level. They don't accept accountability in any level or any capacity. So no, I don't see it. I don't see it happening, but not to my avail, because I've tried everything that I could.
Now, on your website, you focus on three different talking points on some of your common sense ideas: improving education, small business, and crime. You go over some of the crime statistics on your website. What are some of the things that you want to implement? I mean, obviously, people could go and read on the website, but let them hear it from you.
Yeah, well, community safety programs on a public safety matter. I mean, the three that you're referring to is public safety, small business, and education. I believe those three can be used in unison to create a better District 45. So on the public safety level, it's public safety rooted in protecting our officers. It's public safety in protecting our communities, having community councils. It's small business in making it easier for people to become entrepreneurs and to actually run their own business and be accountable. It's education on a level that we protect our teachers and don't fire them for vaccine mandates, or have our loyalty to those city workers be very frail. And that's the implementation that I'm going to use, and actually getting deep into the community. Um, Not just at a bureaucratic level, not just as a city council member, but as a member of, this district, as a member of this community, where I've been here and I've seen the ups and downs uh, of this area, and it's continuously going down. So one of the things that I definitely want to implement, that I feel would be an innovation, is small business development centers. And why small business development centers? Well, because when you look at the crime stats, a lot of the crimes are coming from kids of my generation, young 20s, maybe even teens at this point. And the reason is they have nothing else to do. They come from a generation, the COVID era, where now everything has moved from an in-person to a digital environment. And these kids don't know how to interact. They don't know how to properly uh, organize in a social setting, or organize in a professional setting. So, small business development centers is going to be that segue to keeping our kids safe, keeping our kids busy, and also setting them for a path of success.
Cafecito, any questions you have for Eliza before I continue?
Yeah, following that thread, first of all, I that does excite me, because something that we don't hear about too often are ideas, at least in the mainstream, I mean, effective ideas to tackle that dark era that a lot of people just want to move away from. But we can't, because society is experiencing repercussions. We have a generation that is having more difficulty in the day to day 101. And then we have an elder generation that is very frustrated, that doesn't understand this separation of why it's so difficult to communicate. It's not just social media. A lot of it got worse too after 2020. How are you seeing maybe the talking points from your opponent, and how does sort of that inspire you to speak to the community that you're seeking votes from?
I think the more important part is that I don't see my opponent speaking to the community. I've received at least 10 phone calls from constituents that, like I said before, they go to the community board meetings, they go to city hall, they go to town hall meetings. They're active in this community. However, there's no accountability being taken. I've heard one lady tell me that she made a complaint starting at Farrah Lewis, my opponent, her office, and it went all the way up to Eric Adams, and nothing got done throughout the process. Not Antonio Reynoso, not Farrah Lewis, not Eric Adams had taken accountability and taken that into consideration. And it's pretty much the same exact Democratic talking points. They want affordable housing. We want safer streets. We want better education. We want more funding to go into nonprofit organizations that can actually facilitate a demand for goods and services. However, it's only during election year that we talk about these things. This is the only time that she's ever going to go out and speak on these things. But I guarantee you that if she wins next year, you're not going to hear of people, and that's for a lot of city council members across the board. So it's not a matter of their talking points; it's a matter of their silence. That's really the problem.
Okay, that's noted. I think I also like to sometimes hear what they're saying, just because it's it's sometimes it can be helpful. But I get what you're saying. Absence brilla por su ausencia. A lot of them have the same pattern. We've experienced that firsthand in just maybe surprise visiting different elected officials for different reasons, and they not being there at all. Like this, there used to be this open door kind of policy, and now it seems like the office doors are always locked, and they say it's for security reasons, and then you go in there and you're like, well, can I, is such and such here? And then they're like, no one's here. And then they're like, well, how can I even like leave a message? Well, you should call. Then you're like, well, I tried calling, and no one has given my message. And then they're like, well, what can I do? You need to so then I push back. So listen, I'm telling you, because I understand the aggravation that many constituents are experiencing. And this is real, mi gente. This is why somebody like Elijah is exciting. And we need to, stop thinking about red or blue and start thinking about who the candidate is and what common sense things they're bringing to try to mitigate this crisis that we have in New York City. That, to me, if you don't have an open door to communicate with your constituents or with people with opposing views, then how in the heck are we ever going to move forward in any way? Like, it just seems like bully tactics and grandstanding, but your people are rarely ever there. I have spent years trying to communicate with certain people that are in my orbit, and I've even gone to Albany multiple times on meetings, and always something comes up, something to rush to. So this is a frustration. I understand people are busy, but you also have I think elected officials have a responsibility to communicate, and again, we're all being squeaky wheels here in New York City. Why we're pivoting Cafecito Break to focus highly on the political landscape in New York is because it has been hijacked by Democrats. It has been hijacked by rhinos who are colluding, and it has been hijacked also. The system has been hijacked to make us feel like voting is senseless, don't participate, the system is rigged. A lot of those things are true. Elijah, what is your take on all of this that is coming out of my mouth?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It's a systematic thing. It's the machine, the machine, the machine. Whether it's red or blue, we're not seeing any accountability across the board, and I have to be fair and put that out there that there's no bipartisanship, there's no collaboration, there's no getting things done for our communities. We hear a lot of the rhetoric, whether it's from the left or the right, about each other constantly opposing, but at the end of the day nothing gets done in our communities. Even I'm facing the repercussions of that. I go to people's doorstep and they say, I don't trust politicians, you're just another politician, you're just another false promise, you're just another, you want my vote and that's it. And it's been more constant than people who are receiving it and saying, hey, this kid is trying to do good by us, this kid is not one of the machine, not one of the establishment, he's just a good young man trying to do the right thing for his community. So it's going to take a lot more than just words. It's going to take a lot more than just, fighting red, blue, the same exact rhetoric over and over. It's going to take getting to the people, going knocking on their doors, going into these communities that nobody has ever seen or looked at before. Part of my campaign, I've been hitting the projects directly. You've never seen a Republican go into the projects, let alone be in this district regardless. But
Um,
that's a big part of it.
Sorry, don't say never. I was too in Coney Island. Continue though.
All right, so let me rephrase. In Flatbush, you haven't seen that happen. And that's part of the reason why I decided to run in this race, because I'm able to do that. I'm able to hold a different standard of quote unquote politics, or politricks, as people like to say in this neighborhood. Uh, it's really going to take an entire systematic refresh in order to change what has already been done, unfortunately.
I want to point out, like, a lot of the Democrats don't realize. I'm going to quote LaGuardia when he said that there's no Republican or Democratic way to take out the garbage. And a lot of these Democrat voters are voting Democrat because of issues like abortion, which has nothing to do with city elections. And they're voting on national politics. They're voting parties on national politics for local levels. And on a local level, the difference between Republican and Democrat is Republicans are pro police, and Democrats are defund the police. And pro police is going to stop crime, and defunding the police isn't. That's common sense. There's not much. There's not like a stark difference of ideology when it comes to uh, it's just people that have common sense and then people that don't, and oftentimes it's the Republicans that have the common sense to fix the problem. They have their economics is a big factor in the local politics, where you have people that believe in the minimum wage of $15 now. I think Mamdani wants to raise it to like 30 or 40 or something crazy like that. It's like the money goes on trees with children or something like that. That just these stupid solutions that they think is just so simple. Oh, we'll just pay people more money and everything will be fine. Like, it's completely idiotic. It's like something that anyone with a grade school level of basic math would even understand that that's not feasible. And I want to point out, Cafecito, if you could be aware of the time, around the 28-minute mark, I want to kind of do like a bit of a cut, because if we could actually cut the first 28 minutes of this episode, I'll put it on Brooklyn Free Speech on my TV show on Saturday, and then it could air on Saturday as well. we could continue the conversation for the full hour, but just kind of a wrap up around the 28-minute mark, so I could submit that, so that Elijah could get some more people in Flatbush that might be watching as well to help with the vote on that, air this Saturday at 2:30 p.m. I'll pass it back to you though, Cafecito.
So Elijah, how has the process been for you, reaching out to people and letting them know about your campaign, and also how are you seeing it like in reflection with people your age? Are they surprised that you're getting into politics, like, or what's that been like, or doesn't even matter, right? Because when somebody has a goal, they have a goal, right?
Yeah, I mean, different generations are receiving it differently. My generation is kind of on the fence. Being a Republican conservative, it's not really a good rep in New York right now, especially if you're not adept to politics and understanding, where the lines are drawn specifically. But the older generation, Flatbush is a very Caribbean place. And naturally, Caribbeans, Puerto Rican, Dominican, Jamaican, Grenada, Haiti, they're naturally conservatives. So it's been it's been very much a learning experience, I would say, because they're conservative. However, they're so like unbearably loyal to the Democratic Party that they will not they won't vote for me because I'm a Republican. And that's all it is. You're a great guy, you're a good young man, I wish you the best, you're going to do great in life, but I can't vote for you because you're a Republican. And so
Tell them to vote on the conservative party line. I've literally had that happen on
mhm,
like early voting, campaigning on Neptune Avenue in Coney Island. I was like, I can't vote Republican. I'm like, I'm on the conservative line as well.
yeah.
Rosie, you vote for me on there. He's like, you know
Yep.
what? I'm going to do that. And he voted. He came back to me. He's like, yeah, I saw the conservative. I voted for you on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
They can't vote for the R. They're just so. It's
Hmm.
like the R stands for racist to them. Like that's just basically how it is. Like, that's what's embedded in their brain.
Yep, that's been my strategy as well, trying to break the barrier of like, hey, listen, this is what a Republican is, this is what a conservative is. If you don't like the Republicans, vote conservative. Me and you think the same exact way. It's very ideological. So there's no difference between you and I. We're talking the same language, but we're talking a different party. That's all it is.
I
Yep.
will
Unfortunately, go ahead.
I will say that it's been interesting just being out in the streets and talking to so many different people in the last amount of years. And I feel like there is a temperature shift, even though some folks are not ready to meet that at the polls. I think that most people can recognize that something in Democratic leadership doesn't seem okay. There were many times that people would tell me off camera because they didn't. This is part of like the fear. They wouldn't even want to be on camera if they were a small business person or if they were working within a corporate sort of entity, because then if they were seen even alluding just gently away from the party, they felt like that could be detrimental to either their job or their small business. There was some small business people that said, yo no puedo hablar, like, yo no quiero, I don't want my business to get messed with. I don't want people to just show up. So, you get the sense that there's something deeper, like the weaponization of even that idea that you can't even jump across, like, who are you betraying, really? Like, this is a question that I'm asking the community, not in a facetious way, but who are you betraying? Because let's be very honest, they already have betrayed us. Not all, but many in leadership, and many in leadership in New York City, right? Because I really am hyper focused in New York City politics, are people that either are branded to have to fit the certain narrative, right? To look or sound like the person or the people that they're trying to get votes from. And Look, I know politics, people play those things on both sides, but I think that right now is like who's the more common sense, and I don't like the way New York City is going. How do you see, let's say, this push for democratic socialism, Elijah? The rumors that AOC may run for president, which we saw that coming last year, and Mamdani, right? Do you think people are waking up to Mamdani? I asked you a bunch of questions. Feel free to take it wherever you want.
Yeah, it's all fluff. I would say, seeing it from the inside out and the outside in, it's all fluff. It's all to just headlines to get the conversation starting. What I want people to really truly understand is, no matter what the outcome of the election is, whether I win or lose, whether it's Mamdani, Cuomo, Adams, Sliwa, whoever it may be, I want you to take a look. If you're the audience right now, take a look at what exactly these people do. What do they do on a day-to-day basis? How do they respond to questions and criticism? How do they vote in terms of policy? Because that's one thing that people just definitely don't know. And it makes our job harder as candidates, as good people, as good candidates who want to actually implement the change, because people don't know. You hear democratic socialism, people are scared of what the hell that may mean because they don't understand what it means. People don't understand what capitalism means. It's not a basic knowledge anymore. And that's part of my education platform, for a separate conversation. But people need to be educated in exactly what they're talking about so that we can further and say, this is BS. You know what? Actually, this might be right. You know, that's that's a big step forward in watching what happens to our city, because right now everybody's in the dark, everybody's talking like this, but nothing's getting done for our communities. You know, to answer your question, I'm tired of seeing the same rhetoric on both sides and nothing gets done for my community. Absolutely nothing. So it's not a matter of party. It's not a matter of establishment. It's not. There's no one way to fix all these solutions to all these problems that we have. We need to get boots on the ground, start educating the communities so that they can make the responsible choice when it comes to election days.
Really quick, your website is Elijah Diaz for citycouncil.com, correct?
It's Diaz for citycouncil.com.
Diaz for citycouncil.com. Just because we're going to wrap up the TV section portion of the episode, so I want to get that in there. We got about a minute. I just want to really quick send one more message before the TV episode cuts off. Um, Common sense is not common when you're a communist. That's in the rap song by High Res. Um, in the beginning, you talked about Republicans and Democrats, but in reality, it's like if you have a school with 28 teachers and three of them have this idea, but the principal and all the other teachers don't agree with you, that idea isn't going anywhere. It's like the Republicans, there's such a super minority in the city council that we got people from Staten Island and South Brooklyn. That's about it. Queens, but that's pretty much it. So in New York, if you want to make a difference, no matter what district you live in, it's time to vote red, time to vote Republican. Curtis Lewa for mayor and Republican down the board if you actually want to see real change. With that, I'll wrap up the TV episode and we'll continue for the remainder of the portion of the podcast. Yeah, just cut it at 28:50. I should have said this in pre-production
Don't
before
worry,
we
I'll do
went
it.
live. But
So,
the
so let's reset and remind our audience that we are here Mondays, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and our focus is the election season in New York because it is an important one, and we're going to be featuring candidates that we're excited about, such as Elijah Diaz for City Council. Elijah, is there something that we haven't asked you that you're excited about that you'd like to share with us, or even communicate to the Cafecito Break audience that we serve?
Yeah, there's an event that's coming up actually. I don't have the date yet. I'm still waiting on the location to finalize, but it's called "It Takes a Village," and this one is going to be a a give back, a testimony to what a tightly knit community of diversity can do for an individual. I plan to award those community members um, who would never ever receive some type of recognition. Your cashiers at your supermarket, your regular small business that's the only hardware store within a mile or two. The regular everyday people, barbers, doctors, dentists, all of these things, um, the backbone of our communities. So I'm really looking forward to that. I hope that everybody around the city can, follow that event when it does come out and really see how a community can serve just one individual and how one individual can give back.
Mark, do you have a question?
Uh, not at the moment. If you have something else you want to add, you can go ahead.
Well, and about the halfway mark, we like to pivot to the tremendo bull chip that we are seeing in New York City politics and all the things that we hear, all the things like common sense things. Okay, how are you seeing this conversation in relationship to crime, safety, subway, MTA bus?
What do you mean? How am I seeing this
Well,
conversation?
because according to if you're listening to Eric Adams statistics, crime is
Mhm.
down on certain things. Governor Hochul will report the same thing. But if you're watching some of the videos that are posted by New York City and New Yorkers, it's almost like, are we living in two different earths?
What can we do to prevent people from wiping their ass with the poles in the subway? I don't know if if you guys seen that video, but like, what is going on, New York? Come on, man.
Oh
And
man.
the funny thing is that the first person that chimed in was Cozy. He was like, "This is why people make fun of me, but this is why I don't be touching no poles when I get into the subway system." Because I remember like one time we were all looking at him like, "What's your problem? Just hold on to the pole." And no, no. And now he's got proof. He's like, okay,
Oh
that's
man.
why we walk around with antibacterial stuff.
Mhm.
Got to wear
Oh man.
gloves in the summer.
Oh, yeah, I saw that video the other day. I was just like, you know what? I'd rather make it look like I'm sliding into second base, falling across the train rather than to hold one of those poles. It's disgusting. Again, like I said before, it's all fluff. They talk about these crime numbers, and real New Yorkers don't believe anything that they're hearing, especially on that end. Even just in the train stations, you see a whole bunch of homeless people. You see them coming in droves, really, especially when it's cold outside. The summer is a little bit different. But how are we going to fix this problem? To me, it's being more responsible with the spending of our tax-paying dollars. They want to put up homeless shelters for immigrants. You know, it would take maybe 25% of that, if not less, to put the homeless population into some kind of housing. Get these mentally ill people off the streets and rehabilitate them. We have the resources for it. We're the richest city in the world. There's resources for every problem that we have right now, but it's irresponsible spending. It's irresponsible governing. It's irresponsible special interests. All of these things need to stop, and we need to hold our elected officials accountable. We don't do that. We simply don't do that. I believe it starts there. That's the number one step that we got to take, step by step. Number one, hold your elected officials accountable.
You know, I mean, we saw De Blasio, but basically his wife was supposed to handle like $1 billion or $2 billion for the homeless that nobody knows where it went. I mean, that's some of these politicians belong in jail when it comes to the funding for these things. They keep spending on the dumbest things, but when it comes to something that's actually important, like books and schools or something, they claim poverty that the city doesn't have money, and it just continues on and on. Then you see them spending you know millions of dollars for gender studies after school program or something like that. Like it's absolutely ridiculous. But one of the things you mentioned earlier, a lot of, like, if you're a native New Yorker and you hear about the crime numbers, it's always people feel like it's fear mongering and stuff. You have literally millions of people in New York, so when you hear 5 people got murdered yesterday, you're not, if it's not somebody that you kind of just don't care. It's like you didn't get shot, your friend didn't get shot, you took the subway and you made it from point A to point B without somebody wiping their ass on the pole. So there was no extracurricular activities happening while you were on the subway, so you feel that it's safe. But in reality, people are still getting hurt, and poles do have doo doo on.
I mean, I always knew polls had germs, but this is taking it to another level. This is literally tremendo board chip. Literally.
Yep. So yeah, it's just New Yorkers, like, you'll have a homeless person sleeping on the bench, and you'll sit on the bench right across from them. Like, nothing seems to phase us, so we just keep on moving. But it shouldn't have to be like that, where that homeless person is sleeping on the bench, taking up the 3 seats, when he should be able to have his own place, safe place to go and lay down. So, and if I was going to say Democrats, which is also correct, because the correct word is politicians, but they're all Democrats in New York. If they actually spent money the right way for programs that'll actually help, then we could actually solve that problem, but they don't. So, unfortunately.
This is why I say that, and I'm going to continue to be a little sticky wheel about this. I believe that if you are going to be in leadership, that you should have budget 101, and that your team should have budget 101. Like when I was in the industry, there were certain things and trainings that we needed to all to be updated on, right? When there's a new software, you need to learn it. When there's a new update on Instagram, you need to learn the update on Instagram. So why the heck are we not freaking learning budget 101? Because I don't know. And I love the arts. I come from arts and entertainment, but I think that sometimes we spend way too much money on arts and entertainment, and then we fund things that don't even look like art. Some of the statues that we've seen in the city are questionable to me, for example. And when we hear how much money went into some of these projects, and you think about, this could have solved some of the kids who are homeless. We have a lot of kids who are homeless, who are living in shelters in the city. Real big problems. And it's disheartening, and it's disheartening because it has created a tough-skinned New York, where part of the crappy videos that you see are also like, there was this video that I saw the other day, in New York City, and there was this, I guess it was a woman. She was really upset, and she was just taking objects from the street and smashing just random cars, and she smashed the whole front windshield. And then she was going down the block, and she was taking objects from like the street and just smashing other cars. And New Yorkers were passing by like nothing was happening. And you hear the guy saying, "What's in the air? What's in the air?" What is in the air in New York City?
It's not one of their cars, so they don't care. Go ahead, Elijah.
Yeah, I think one thing people need to be aware of is the domino effect. The consequences of one action can trickle down to 5 or 6 more different areas. The homeless population didn't start at just, hey, somebody decided to sleep on the train one night and stood there for 3 years. It started at in affordable housing. It started with a bad job market. It started with, high taxes. Somebody may have lost their home. It could be a number of different things, and you really can't calculate exactly where it came from. So we need to be responsible all across the board, where we're not looking just tackle one issue. We're looking at the real beginning of that problem, because everything starts from one beginning, and the domino effect is what you see of New York City today. I would like to say it's Gotham or Arkham Asylum if you're in the MTA transit system. So it needs to be really looked at, not just one problem, not looking at it from the surface, but looking at it from a deeply rooted place.
I know this is on the state level, but the bail reform bill, going to your domino effect, it's like when somebody gets away with stealing something, it's like, okay, now I'm just going to keep doing that. It's that's why you have the local Rite Aids across the city that had to close down because or other pharmacies, or they used to be open 24 hours and now they're not. And now in order to get a deodorant stick, you got to go and press a button and wait for somebody to come help you. Like it's just it's insane. Like the way life is in New York compared to how it was 5 years ago before Democrats. It kept going worse and worse. I mean, bail reform and lockdowns and everything implemented by Democrats just destroyed New York to the point where it's almost to the point of no return. And I think after this year, if we don't get common sense leadership, it will be at the point of no return. I mean, if people can go into a Rite Aid and afford toilet paper, then they won't have to wipe their ass on the subway pole.
And that's a domino effect for sure. There you go. No toilet paper. It's
Gotta
straight
find.
to straight to the polls.
He found a solution. He found a solution.
Desperate times call for desperate measures, I guess.
His butt was itching.
What can we say?
I have tears coming out of my eyes. I mean, they have a deodorant in jail.
Oh my god.
We it's madness. Like I feel like a prisoner. I seriously feel like a prisoner when I go shop at like the
Literally.
local like CVS. It's like, can I have this deodorant? And like it's a little bit ridiculous. Elijah, have you also seen like a lot of small business closings in your area?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot. I see a lot of smoke shops, especially in my area, and they go down within 3 months. I can't really pinpoint on that specific industry what the problem is. I don't know if it's they're operating illegally and then they're getting shut down, or if it's they can't afford to stay up, or the competition. There's six on one block, so I mean, you can't really pinpoint it there. But other than that, a whole bunch of empty storefronts. And actually, I want to go a little bit deeper into this point, because a point of legislation for me would be for these buildings that go up. You own a lease and you plan on keeping it there for 2 3 years empty, because it's cheaper to keep it as a tax write-off than it is to actually do something with the building. That is something that I want to end. The time frame I'm looking at right now in my initial thoughts is 6 months to a year, where if you don't establish a business plan or a motive to actually do something with that property, you terminate that lease. I'm working with a couple of different people to see what we can actually do about that, how practical it is on a legislative manner. But that's definitely something I want to do with those empty storefronts, because we can't have empty cities. It loses its vibrance. Times Square used to be, the mecca of life. It would be 24/7. Now the city is asleep, maybe 11, 12 o'clock. I don't go out much, but I do know that it's a dying city. It used to be the city that never sleeps. Now it sleeps at 9 o'clock.
Yeah,
Why? Because empty storefronts.
it goes back to like the 70s with Fear City, where people, when the sun goes down, you better be inside. And it goes to the point where I was talking about people robbing stores. It's the CVS doesn't want to be open 24 hours anymore because somebody comes in at midnight and they want to just rob the place, not with a gun, but grabbing a garbage bag and loading it up with stuff and walking right out. And there's nothing that they could do about it, because even if the cops aren't motivated in New York, because if they arrest them, they're going through the revolving door of central booking, where they're out the next day doing the exact same thing. And they're not going to come for their court appearance, and even if they do, they're not going to face any serious jail time for it. It's too lenient on crime. I mean, people criticize the broken windows policy, but this is just a level that we haven't seen before. Like, it's just San Francisco. If it's under $900 or something like that, then they're not even prosecuted at all. They don't even get a fine. They don't get nothing. Like, it's just go ahead and take what you want, and there's no I mean, this is why we deal with having locks on deodorant, and feeling like feeling like you're Cafecito said like a criminal, but I don't know if that's really the correct. I mean, I would make the joke sometimes with the cashiers that come and help me. Oh, now that you unlocked the thank you, now I'm going to go and run out the store with it. Like, what's the difference? Like, I need you to unlock it before I could steal it and walk outside. Like, I mean, I do understand the difference, because it's still easier to steal when there's nobody around and you're just kind of throwing everything in the bag like it's a video game shopping spree, and you have 3 minutes to steal as much as you can. So I mean, that's the reality of the situation, and we're gonna have empty shelves, and it's gonna get really bad in New York City. Like, there's no exaggeration here. It's going to get a lot worse. I'm not even saying it's going to get worse before it's going to get better, because it's just going to continue to get worse, because they're going to change the election laws. We're probably going to have ranked choice voting in the general election. So that way Sliwa doesn't have a chance. Like, he has a chance now because the Democrats are splitting the vote, and they realize that that's no good for them. So they'll probably put in ranked choice voting for the next election, so that even if they're splitting the vote, Sliwa or the Republican candidate will never have a chance. So this is it. This is really, there's no exaggeration here. I know people 4 years ago, 8 years ago, were saying that Republicans were fear mongering about the crime. Crime isn't going to get bad. Well, we weren't fear mongering. It got bad. It got worse. Homelessness got worse. Everything got worse. So it's time to really wake up, and as many Democrats that could see this video, start voting Republican. You've been voting Democrat for decades, and New York constantly gets worse under Democrats. There's not a single Democrat in my lifetime in New York City that actually improved New York City for crime or homelessness or anything like that. So that's not a coincidence. It's time to wake up and realize reality.
Yeah, I've got to add something to that, because I see that a lot of times when we talk, we're obviously on the Republican or conservative side of the aisle. We point the finger and generalize, it's Democrat, Democrat, Democrat. But what you got to realize is that Democrats are saying Republican, Republican, Republican. It's not one way or the other, and people feel threatened, so to speak, when you speak that way. So I've been trying to change the language a little bit and say elected officials, because you could even have Republicans that are bad. You could have Democrats that are bad. You could even have Republicans running as Democrats because they have no shot of winning with that Republican title. So it doesn't really matter about party lines to me. It's about, you got to vote for the person. And if people are going to see that, hey, I'm going to vote for Curtis Lewa this year because Curtis Lewa is the guy, not just because he's a Republican, not just because he's on an independent line, but because I believe that Curtis Lewa is the guy, people need to understand why he's the guy.
Yeah, I agree, but um, the reality is it has been Democrats, and that's something that I like to hammer home. And I know I know that a lot of the Republicans nationally are corrupt. I'm not denying that Republicans or aren't corrupt in state, local, and federal and city politics. They are, no question about it. But they have zero say in New York City politics because they're such a super minority. Unless you live in Staten Island, you're Republicans really don't have anything to do with anything. Basically, you just don't. There's no say. I mean, I used the analogy before about teachers and the principal. Principal analogy for mayor, city council members analogy for teachers. They're all having a meeting about some policy that they want to implement in the school, and three teachers stand up, but they're just looked at like, what are you, crazy? No, we're not going to do that. And it's like children speaking to the parents trying to change the rules because they don't have a say. So
Mhm.
when anytime people want to blame Republicans, it's not Republicans when it comes to New York City, and a lot of people don't realize that a lot of
Mhm.
I go over the history. Republicans are the ones that freed the slaves. Republicans are the ones that fought for city rights. Republicans are the ones that gave women the right to vote. Those are all historical facts, and they didn't change parties like it's the WWE where you turn from good guy to bad guy for no logical reason. That
Mhm.
didn't happen. That's made up by the media. The only thing that changed is the red and the blue because in 1984 CBS started switching the Republicans to the red because Democrats used to be red, and red was associated with communism, and they didn't like that stigma, so they switched from red to blue. That's the only thing that switched. Other than that, the actual parties, there's a couple politicians during the Nixon era that actually changed where Democrats actually think that those parties switched. They definitely did not. And, I point those things out. The KKK was founded by Democrats. It's not, this is, there's nothing changing. The only difference is, and it's, you use the word slave and people get sensitive, but they put them in, economic slavery. Lyndon B. Johnson, when it comes to welfare programs, and says if we do this right, we'll have these ends voting Democrat for the next 200 years. Where are a lot of the most segregated areas in the country? I think is the Bronx and specifically the Bronx. But when you look at the projects, like in these areas, that's where all the minorities are. And if they make too much money, then they don't qualify for their house anymore. They don't qualify for the food stamps anymore. So it's like, here, take this, keep voting Democrat, and don't ever even think about making something of yourself. And that's the economic slavery that the Democrats put in place. Here, stay in these projects over by the airport, that's like, or in these areas that are not even close to a subway, so it's hard for you to get to work. So it takes longer for you to get to work than anybody else, so you're already at a disadvantage. And, just enjoy the free food that we give you and the cheap housing, and just keep voting Democrat. That's
Yeah.
the reality. That's the harsh reality of the situation. That's what the
Mhm.
Democrats put in place. They put in the abortion clinics in the minority areas. Barbara Sanger admitted this, for population control. Then they put a white person on stage for Roe versus Wade, who lied about being raped, wasn't even raped, didn't even have an abortion. She gave it up for adoption. But that's the case that's known for abortion. When and to get sway public opinion with a slogan that says "My body, my choice," when the reality was the goal was population control, and specifically minority population control. So it's time for Democrats to wake up. And I got no problem telling people this, because when you tell people this about parties, then they start to wake up. And that's why I repeat the message as often as possible.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely see that. I mean, it's just I'm coming from a place where that is affecting me. It's the same name calling, it's the same, the same exact finger pointing, and people don't recognize that. even where I stand politically, or where I may be as a politician, is nothing different than what an old school Democrat would have been. So, what am I? Am I the old school Democrat, or am I the new school Republican? Like, you can call it one way or the other, but why not be purple instead of red or blue? That purple's my color right here. I make it very known. It needs to be a matter of bipartisanship, because the problem that we're in right now is because nobody listens to Republicans or listens to conservatives. So we can't implement the same and expect some kind of collaboration where it's going to be a peaceful compromise. We have to be able to meet somewhere in the middle. And I'm not advocating for progressive policies here. I'm advocating for, we need to come up with solutions to actually get things done, because we're fighting left and right and nothing is getting done in our city. We need to change this dynamic where we're pointing the finger, talking about party rather than talking about policy and talking about implementation.
Well, the thing is, we as Republicans, myself included, have come up with ideas, but they
Mhm.
fall on deaf ears. They don't get implemented because we're not in office. We're not in a position to implement them. They
Mhm.
just look at us like we're crazy. They don't want to actually debate us because they don't
Yeah.
want those ideas to come out.
Mhm.
They basically want to silence us. Like it's like we're children at the kiddie table. Like, oh yeah, that's nice. Okay,
Mhm.
and that's it.
Yeah.
That's the way we're treated in New York
Yeah.
City.
Well, let
And
me
also,
clarify. I'm talking about more at a constituent level, where people who are not in position to enact policy, the elected official level, the politicians, it's a little bit different. But as far as education, we need to come together and unify, and then we can make responsible choices as
Yeah,
voters.
my campaign was forget red versus blue. Vote for the candidate that will fight for you. Was on my
Hmm.
campaign literature. It
Amen
was
to that.
nonpartisan ideas, municipal bonds to fund affordable housing, after school video game program, put back in trade school like um, classes, financial literacy, and things of that nature. Teach kids in high school things that they could actually use in life, not just the same. They don't need to know about gender studies. The kid in Kindergarten Cop said it best: "Boys have a penis and girls have a vagina." That's your gender studies. The kid in Kindergarten Cop knew how it worked.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
not you don't need a class for that.
Yeah.
But
well, I have a funny little story to share, and maybe we could start wrapping down soon if that's okay. So the other day, I saw a Curtis Lewa little sticker, right? But it was like a cutout of the beret and a scan code. And the thing is that I just saw it in the most random place. It was on the floor, so I was like, "Oh my god, that's so cool!" Like this a red beret in Wokey Pokey Land. So I take my little smartphone to try to record it, and a little nosy body that was standing next to me wanted to ask me about it as I'm recording. So I'm like, "Oh well, I think that this is Curtis Lewa who's running for mayor." So he cuts me off. He goes, "Ma'am, instead of you wasting your time, I'm paraphrasing a little bit. Instead of you wasting your time paying attention to the mayoral campaign, you should be paying attention to something that's a little bit more important, which is women's rights." And then I look up, and he's holding a Planned Parenthood little sign. He wants to talk to me about Planned Parenthood. And I had an inner Puerto Rican tantrum. Inside, I had a really inside, right? Just I'll just tell you this much, Elijah. We were Cafecito Break was founded. Our birthday to the world is Women's International's Day. So I'm like, I look and I'm
Was it
like,
planned that way?
no. I mean, no. It didn't. No. I just, it didn't. But that wasn't part of the
Yeah.
story. So then I'm there doing the quick math. I'm like, I'm not gonna say anything. And I just looked at the young man and I said, I'm gonna just share a little tip, a little business tip with you. Sometimes life will not give you a second chance. because you don't know who you made that statement to. And he was like, no, 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 but come here, let me talk to you. I was like, no, I'm trying to illustrate a point to you. I'm not gonna be mean. But you made an assumption and you had no idea who you said that to. So maybe you should be more mindful of who you might be communicating certain messages, and assuming that somebody doesn't care about women's rights and in a woman's body, and you're a man saying that to a woman like that, in and of itself, it was fighting words. So but I kept it cool. I just thought it was ironic, that we were talking about Planned Parenthood earlier. Like, so, but yeah, let's see more of just marketing for common sense candidates. Elijah, it's been amazing having you with us today. Any final thoughts as we wrap out the show, and anything you'd like to share or add?
Yeah, if you're unsure about who you're voting for this year, if you're unsure how to vote in the first place, now is the time to start looking. We're only what, 42 days out? 42 days out from election day. So it's coming up. It's right around the corner. Get involved, get out to vote this year. We're almost there. It's crunch time.
You reminded me, Cafecito, of when I was campaigning in 2022, getting signatures for U.S. Senate, and I went to one of the freedom rallies, and I know there's a lot of Republicans there, and I'm getting signatures. And I speak to this old guy who's like about 70 years old, and we're having a conversation. I was like, well, what's the most important issue to you? And he's like, women's rights. And I'm like, 70-year-old man, what's the most important issue to you? He's by himself. He's not with like another lady that he's trying to, whatever. And that's what he tells me. I'm like, okay, this guy's obviously not a registered Republican. His signature isn't going to matter, and he lost his balls a long time ago. So I'm not even going to waste my time continuing the conversation anymore.
No,
But
he said it like this. He said women's rights, like a robot. That's how he responded.
yeah, it's sad, really. But Joe Biden said if you had a problem figuring out whether voting for me or Donald Trump, then you ain't black. If you have a problem in New York City figuring out whether to vote Republican or Democrat, then you ain't sane. That's that's you got severe TDS. You've been brainwashed by the fake news for a very long time. The common sense isn't common when you're a communist. Start opening your mind, opening your ears, and realizing the reality of New York is going in the shitter, and it's time to save it. Vote Curtis Lewa and vote Republican or conservative if you think that R stands for racist. And it's time to save New York.
Amen. Thank you, Elijah. Thank you, Mark Fan Y. Cozy, we've missed you today. I have been your host, Rosangel Perez, one of the Perez sisters. Join us again next Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Who's going to be coming up? You're going to have to pay attention to Cafecito Break social media feeds. We are at Cafecito Break across all platforms. You can find us on Twitter, X, which is really X, Rumble, YouTube. We post every day on Instagram, but there it's Cafecito Break 10.0. All right, mi gente. Thank you. Muchas bendiciones. Thank you, Elijah, for joining us. This has been a very fun chat. And mi gente, a little tip for New York. If you are riding the subway, maybe come with gloves. Maybe come with the little like disposable gloves to hold the pole.
And
All right,
toilet
me
paper if you need
and
to get
toilet
it
paper just in case, because you never know when you're gonna find a tremendo wood chip in the city. Okay, I'll see you. Thank you so much.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.